Today I'll teach you how to export GridView to PDF in ASP.NET. So we'll start by adding a GridView control. And you can see I'm adding some colors to the GridView. This is because in this way I'll be able to illustrate to you how to export GridView which has colors to PDF. So now coming back to the columns, I'm adding 3 fields. The first one is contact name. The second one is city. And the third one is country. All these columns belongs to the customers table of the Northwind database. Below the GridView, I am adding a button which will be used to export the GridView to PDF. Now I am moving to the code behind. We'll start by adding some namespaces. Before moving ahead, I am informing you that in order to export a GridView to PDF, you will need to install iTextSharp as well as iTextSharp XML worker, and you can download it from NuGet and install it in your project. So now let's move to the namespaces. The very first namespace is system.io, then system.data, then system.data.sql client, then system.configuration. Then comes the iTextSharp namespaces, iTextSharp.text, iTextSharp.text.pdf, iTextSharp.tool.xml. Now I am writing a function bindGrid which will be used to populate the GridView. This function will be called at 2 places. First in the page load event and second inside the on page index changing event handler. Now I am fetching the connection string from the web.config file. For more information on reading connection string from database, please refer to the video on the right hand side. Here I have created a select SQL query. Now I am creating an object of SQL connection class. As you can see, I am making use of using statement. Using statement is required when you want to destroy your objects as soon as the work is done, and it is also considered as a good programming practice. So I would recommend that you also make use of using statements. Next, I am making use of SQL command object in which I am defining the SQL query and connection. Now I am creating an object of SQL data adapter class. SQL data adapter will be used to fill the data table with the data which is fetched from the database, and SQL data adapter is also used in disconnected architecture where we are not opening and closing the connection. The SQL command is assigned to the select command property of the SQL data adapter. Now I am creating a data table object. The data table object will be filled using the data adapter. And finally the data table is assigned to the GridView. So our function is ready. Now let's call this function inside the page load event handler. Now I am defining the on page index changing event handler. This event is triggered when you click on the page number in the pager of the GridView. The page number which you have clicked is received here and it is set in the page index property of the GridView. As you can see, now I am setting the page index property. Finally, we'll bind the GridView again using the bindGrid method. So here I am setting allow paging property to true. Then I am setting the on page index changing event handler. So our event handler is ready. Let's run the code and check it. As you can see, the GridView is displaying the data page wise and our paging is working perfectly. Now we'll start writing the event which will handle the GridView export to PDF. So first we'll create an object of string writer class. Inside that we'll create an object of HTML text writer class. So here I am setting allow paging property. Here we'll bind the GridView again. Then we will render the GridView control so that it is converted to HTML. Now we'll create an object of string reader class which will read the generated XML. Then we'll create a document object in which we'll specify the document size and also the margins. Then we'll create an object of memory stream class. Then we'll create an instance of PDF writer class. Then we'll open the PDF document and then we'll write the HTML using the parse XHTML method of the XML worker helper class. And finally we'll close the PDF document. Now our PDF document is ready, so we can start the downloading process. So in order to initiate the download process, we will first set the content type of the response class, which will inform the browser that the file being downloaded is a PDF file. The next thing is setting the content disposition header so that we can inform the browser that the file being downloaded is an attachment, and also will specify the name of the file, because if we don't specify the content disposition header, the browser will open the file directly for us to view, and if we want the file to be downloaded, we need to set the content disposition header. The next thing is to set the cache settings to off so that the file is not cached in the browser, and then the PDF document is written to the response, and finally the response is ended. Now here we'll have to override the verify rendering server form method because it is required as we are rendering the GridView to HTML. If this method is not specified, then it will create an exception. So in order to avoid that exception, we have to override this method and leave it empty. With this, we complete our programming part. Now let's move back to the ASPX page where we will specify the on-click event handler for the button. So now we can run our project and see it in action. As you can see, the GridView has been populated and we can see the colors in the GridView and our paging is working perfectly. Now I'll click on the export button and you can see PDF document attached which has the GridView. So with this, we complete our programming part. Today we learned how to export GridView to PDF in ASP.NET. So if you like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and please also click on the bell icon so that you receive notifications. Goodbye.